The Rwandan genocide was an atrocity incited through the use of media propaganda and fear of political suppression. The genocide initially masked by violence and tribal conflicts associated with the civil war raging simultaneously. Before independence from colonial rule, the Tutsis lived in privilege. But after gaining independence from the Belgians in 1962, the Hutu majority came into power. The ongoing civil war between the Rwandan government and exiled Tutsi rebels from the Rwandan Patriotic Front was stifled by a power-sharing agreement that was fronted by moderate Hutus. The Arusha peace process was strongly opposed by Hutu radicals, fearing a return to Hutu economic oppression experienced before the Hutus' rise in government. The assassination of a moderate Hutu president incited the takeover of the government by the military and sparked a national call for genocide. Exiled Tutsi rebels who were waging war in the north of the country were blamed for the assassination. Initially, the killings against the Tutsis and moderate Hutus were carried out by the military, but the violence quickly spread to the countryside, where murders between citizens became common. It's quite perplexing how in a country with an integrated society could erupt into genocide without any central or charismatic leadership. I decided to look into the media propaganda prevalent in Rwanda leading up to and during the genocide, as well as the response of the United States. Before the genocide, information was spreading in support of the Hutu cause. Radio, in particular, was used to spread information because of the largely illiterate population. One radio station, the Radio Mille Collines, created directly after the peace accords were drawn up in 1993, claims that the Tutsis wanted to eliminate the Hutus and called for preemptive self-defense by the Hutus. This radio station used stories of Hutu oppression during the colonial period. They did call-in shows. They played popular music and did on-the-street interviews in order to reach and influence the entire population. The radio champions the elimination of cockroaches as the only way to escape from political suppression. Starting in 1992, Hutu militias stockpiled over 500,000 machetes and started distributing them to radical Hutus. The broadcast grew increasingly hostile toward the Tutsis. The Arusha peace process and raised suspicion of peacekeeping missions. Climaxing directly after the death of the president, the radio station signaled to the listeners that the time had come. The radio instilled fear and provided instruction for the massacres. Lists of victims, including moderate Hutus and Tutsis, were prepared ahead of time. Radio Mille Collines would broadcast the names, addresses, and whereabouts of targets, signaling individuals to go get them. The 10 Hutu commandments were broadcasted, calling the Hutus to weed out the Tutsi scum and to show them no mercy. Tutsis in the Rwandan Patriotic Front, as well as many politicians, pled the United States to silence the radio station by disrupting the broadcast from the airline. But the United States declined their proposal, claiming that the mountainous region would affect the effectiveness of broadcast disruption and that the cost of flying a plane was too great. Although there were news stories circulating in the United States calling what was going on in Rwanda genocide, starting with the Washington Post on April 9th and the New York Times on April 10th, quoting the Radio Mille Collines as the source of the conflict, United States officials turned a blind eye, claiming that violence was regular and expected during a civil war. The United States had no national interest in taking a role and did not receive public pressure and chose not to act. The U.S. ambassador at the time even claims that it was the best radio for information and that its euphemisms were subject to many interpretations, completely ignoring their call to genocide. Atrocities like this genocide in Rwanda have been ignored by the West and the United States. One example is that it took the Security Council a month and a half into the 3-month genocide to even use the word genocide. The Rwandan Patriotic Front was able to diminish the Radio Mille Collines to only broadcast in Kigali, their capital, but broadcasting was quickly taken up by the Rwandan national radio station, perpetrating the massacres nationwide. Ending these broadcasts would in turn restrain the killings by eliminating the instruction and justification for the killing. Since the rise of the media, radio, television, and the internet has been a great influencer of populations and a way to spread propaganda. In states where rates of education are low, any popular media can often carry a monopoly of information and a monopoly of truth, holding the ability to cast doubt or build support for certain topics and ideas. The Rwandan genocide used radio and propaganda to a deadly conclusion. It led to the death of over 800,000 citizens in less than 100 days. And these massacres were brother versus brother, Hutu husband versus Tutsi wife, an absolute atrocity that could have been prevented or curbed with recognition of the conflict through the eyes of international state officials.